Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Good evening, and may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 5 concerning the beast and its image. And still we focus our attention to Revelation 13 verse 3. Let's read again. It says, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." Accordingly, there are 3 prophetic events recorded in this verse. First, concerning the period of time by which one of his heads were wounded. And second, at the time when such deadly wound was healed. And third, at the time when all the world wondered after the beast. Revelation 13 verse 3. Now, let us establish again the absolute fact that according to SR page 88, saying, another factor to be noted, that every symbol of the entire procession of the beast point out facts that were to transpire within the period represented by each beast, and not one of them refers to anything in the past save the hereditary ancestral characteristics. So here the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain that each beast, whatever symbolization that God had placed on such beast, it point out facts that were to transpire within the period represented by the beast. Or in other words, since our subject is concerning the leopard-like beast, therefore, whatever the symbolization that had placed under the leopard-like beast, it must point out facts by which to transpire within the period represented by the leopard-like beast. That is the first principle. Second, it says, still in 2SR page 88, therefore, heads or horns have no reference to anything before or after the period represented by the beast. It is also unnatural for heads, members of the beast, to exist before or after the beast himself. Therefore, it would be inconsistent to conclude that the horns as well as the heads could denote a consecutive order of systems so long as they all appear at the time of the closing act of the beast. The leopard-like beast in his wounded state must be intended to prophetically point out the existing condition with the present civilization. Now, the second divine principle, according to this reading on 2SR page 88, that it is illogical and unnatural that the members of the beast, and concerning the members of the beast, it points out only to the horns and the heads. That it is illogical and unnatural that either the heads or the horns would exist prior to the existence of the beast, or would exist after the period represented by the beast. Or in other words, the 10 horns of the leopard-like beast and the 7 heads of the leopard-like beast must exist in the period represented by the leopard-like beast. And let us read 2SR pages 85 and page 86. As the same number of horns appear on each succeeding beast, namely the nondescript, Daniel 7 verse 7, the leopard-like, Revelation 13 verse 1, and the scarlet-colored, Revelation 17 verse 3, representing the entire New Testament era. It is evident by the facts gathered that the number of horns are intended to denote universal. Now here the voice of inspiration are plainly telling us that the main objective why our Almighty God places 10 horns to the nondescript beast, to the leopard-like beast, and to the scarlet-colored beast to denote universal. But there is an important question that we need to settle, that why is it that in spite of the fact that the first 3 beasts on the book of Daniel, on chapter 7, even though that it is a universal empire, why is it that God do not place 10 horns on these first three beasts? I would like to read to us R118. It says, as it has reference to the entire world history under sin, we must consider the number of universal empires or periods since the world began. There is one before the flood, as previously explained. The second is Babylon. The third, Medo-Persia, fourth, Greece, and the fifth is the Roman monarchy. Now, in this reading, 2SR 118, it is very plain that the first 3 beasts, the lion represented by Babylon, the bear represented by Medo-Persia, the four-headed leopard represented by Greece, are 3 universal empires. But why is it that God do not place 10 horns on the first 3 beasts in spite of the fact of being a universal empire, if the intention of placing the 10 horns is to indicate universal? 2SR, page 85 and page 86. Now let me read to you the old symbolic code. Here in the old symbolic code, one symbolic code, number 17, page 6 and 7. It says, therefore, as long as Protestantism entertains the spirit of the reformers, his deadly wound could not be healed, but rather get worse. Consequently, as the wound on the head represents universal reformation among Christendom, the healing of the wound must also represent universal apostasy, which is further proved by the fact that the blasphemy is over all 7 heads, and which denotes that while by words they claim to be Christ followers, Christians, in practice they are not. Thus they blaspheme. See Revelation 2 verse 9, Ezekiel 20 verse 27. And since the wound is healed in the period of the Seventh-day Adventist denomination, and if this denomination is the one which God has appointed to keep the spirit of the Reformation, the sore on the head, if it has not apostatized, the wound could not be healed. One symbolic code, number 17, page 6 and 7. Now, in this reading, we can immediately understand that the principal reason why God places 10 horns to the last 3 beasts, the nondescript, the leopard-like, and the scarlet-colored, God's intention is to reveal that in that period of time, God's people are already universal. Unlike on the first 3 beasts, the lion represented by Babylon, the four-headed leopard, the bear represented by Medo-Persia, and the four-headed leopard represented by Greece or Grecia, within that period of time, God's people are not universal. They were located only in one nation, and that is the nation of Israel. Now let us read tract number 5, page 55. Correspondingly, the symbolism shows that the religious system of ancient Israel was the only spiritual light in all the ancient world, and it's Israel itself, the only church recognized by the author of the scriptures. Tract number 5, page 55. And we know that it is in the closing period of the Old Testament by which the Roman monarchy had been established in the throne. So in that historical event, we can easily discern that the first 3 beasts, God's people at that time are not universal, located only on one nation, and that is the nation of Israel. Brothers and sisters, unlike in the period of the nondescript beast, the leopard-like beast, in the scarlet-colored beast, God's people are universal. Or in other words, brothers and sisters, to repeat again, the beast revelation, it is pertaining to the nations that had been involved when God's church had been captive, had been in bondage, and also had been defeated by the scheme of the devil. Now, let us now study closely the leopard-like beast. The leopard-like beast, according to 2SR, on page 86, it says, inasmuch as the lion, the bear, the four-headed leopard, and the nondescript beast, the symbols of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, are linked to each other, the unbreakable chain of beasts make it impossible for another universal beast, meaning system, to intersect their consecutive order. Consequently, the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13, verse 1 to 9, must follow the nondescript beast represented by Rome. And then it says, this indisputable fact proves that he is the fifth universal beast. Now, brethren, the focal point of the vision of John concerning the leopard-like beast in Revelation 13, verse 1 to verse 10, is pointing to the time when the leopard-like beast became a universal beast. And the leopard-like beast cannot intersect the period while the second stage of the nondescript beast, which is the little hornhead, pointing to the papacy, during that period of time, when the papacy reigns supreme universally, then it is illogical that the leopard-like beast intersect in that period of time. Brothers and sisters, why? Because if the leopard-like beast in that period of time is reigning universally, then it could not be that we will say at the same time the papacy is also reigning universally. There shall be only one, and that is why it says it must be in consecutive order. Now, the statement saying, therefore, the leopard-like beast must follow the nondescript beast. And since we all know that the nondescript beast, second stage, the papal supremacy, ended in 1798. So it must be from 1799 onwards, by which we will consider the leopard-like beast as the fifth universal beast. Now, here's another statement that I would like to read, brothers and sisters. Still to SR page 86. The leopard-like beast arises out of the sea in the same manner as the four beasts before it. Daniel 7 verse 3. Therefore, the beast of Revelation 13, verse 1 to 9, is created from the result of war and commotion among the nations, in the same manner as Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. Since the evidence revealed by the symbol cannot be questioned, the leopard-like beast assumes the period after the fall of imperial Rome, corresponding to the feet and shoes, iron and clay of the great Laymans in Daniel chapter 2. In other words, the leopard-like beast arrives with the closing period represented by the first stage of the nondescript beast, while the second stage of the latter papal Rome continues up to 1798. Consequently, the unfolding process of the one overlaps the downward course of the other. To John, the leopard-like beast was shown not in its unfolding process, but rather in its closing act, for he says, and his deadly wound was healed. Now, first of all, the shepherd's rod plainly told us that whatever the vision of John in the island of Patmos concerning Revelation 13, verses 1 to 10, pertaining to the leopard-like beast, the focal point, the particular object in view that was shown by God to John the Revelator is the closing act of the leopard-like beast, not on its unfolding process. Although Bethhotep understood the unfolding process of the leopard-like beast, but still, the idea is obtained in the chapter itself in Revelation 13, verses 1 to 10. And such knowledge was not bestowed by God to John the Beloved. Brothers and sisters, the only task that had been given by God to John the Beloved is to write the vision. But to understand the vision, such understanding was not committed unto him. And it was recorded in 2 TG 44 on page 30 and page 31. It says, "We as Christians have obviously failed to note that the secret things of God matter not how simple were to be unsealed at any time by anyone. Inspiration would never in the first place have counseled them in symbols and parables. Christendom is still blind to the fact that to attempt to break into the mysteries of God would be to attempt to defeat His purposes. Yes, to try to break into the divine code is to try the impossible. For example, even when the time did come for the book sealed with 7 seals to be unsealed, Revelation 4 and 5, no one in heaven or on earth was able to do so, but only the Lion of the tribe of Judah could break the seals and look into the things which afterwards were shown to John the Revelator. And though John wrote them, he himself could not before time explains them. Then how can we do such before time and without the inspiration of the same Spirit who indicted them?" 2 TG 44, page 30 and 31. So that statement is also explained in the Great Controversy 344, saying, "Even the prophets who had been favored by God with a special illumination of the Spirit did not fully comprehend the import of the revelation committed to them. The meaning was to be unfolded from age to age, as the people of God should need the instruction therein contained." Great Controversy 344. And to repeat again, brothers and sisters, that statement in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, plainly telling us here in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John." Notice, brothers and sisters, there is no dispute to the fact that the pronoun him is pointing to John the Revelator. But how about the statement, "to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass"? That verse is easily understood that the book of Revelation, after it was completely written in 98 AD, the only one who could explain the book of Revelation are God's servants, the prophets, by which the same Spirit that inspired John the Beloved to write the vision must be transmitted to another human channel, and they must be God's servants, brothers and sisters. And I fully believe that that statement can be applied to Sister White and Betty Hotep, and even more particularly to Betty Hotep, brothers and sisters. So to repeat again, here the shepherd's rod is plainly telling us here in 2SR page 86, brothers and sisters, that there is an unfolding process of the leopard-like beast. But the unfolding process of the leopard-like beast, it was not shown to John the Revelator. According to this reading in 2SR page 86, it says, "To John, the leopard-like beast was shown not in its unfolding process, but rather in its closing act. For he says, and his deadly wound was healed." And also in this reading, we can easily understand that the closing act of the beast is in the period of time by which the deadly wound was healed. That is the period of time by which the closing act of the beast did commence. But the shepherd's rod plainly told us here in track number 12, let me read to you again, track number 12, page 21 and page 22, it says, "The beast 40 It is concerning the leopard-like beast. The beast 40 and 2-month period falls in the time of ecclesiastical Rome, the empire after pagan Rome, whereas its wounded state, Revelation 13 verse 3, symbolizes her during the Protestant period. Moreover, the beast represents 3 periods: the period prior to its wounded state, the period during its wound, and the period in which its wound is healed. In these 3 periods enumerated by the Shepherd's Rod in tract number 12, page 21 and page 22, only the third and the last period, which is called the closing act of the leopard-like beast. Therefore, period number 1, period number 2 is considered, brothers and sisters, as within the period of the formation or the unfolding process of the leopard-like beast. Or in other words, since the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain that the closing period of the leopard-like beast is at the time when his deadly wound was healed, I would like to read again the statement in 2SR page 86. To John, the leopard-like beast was shown not in its unfolding process, but rather in its closing act, for he says, and his deadly wound was healed. So the closing act of the leopard-like beast is at the time when his deadly wound was healed. So these first 2 periods must be within the period which is called by the Shepherd's Rod as the unfolding process of the leopard-like beast, or the formation of the leopard-like beast. It says, let us read again in tract number 12, page 22. Brothers and sisters, it says, period number 1, the period prior to its wounded state. Period number 2, the period during its wound. And period number 3, the period in which its wound is healed. And it is during period number 3, according to 2SR page 86, which is called the closing act of the leopard-like beast. But before we could be able to comprehend the closing act of the leopard-like beast, we need to study closely first the unfolding process of the leopard-like beast. Now, let us read again 2TG number 17 on page 9. And it says, the earth then points to a place away from the sea, and the opposite of what sea stands for, a country made up of inhabitants who have immigrated from elsewhere. The only such country or nation away from the old country and as influential as portrayed in this two-horned beast that arises after the formation of the leopard-like beast in the Protestant period is the United States. Now, first of all, the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain that the formation of the leopard-like beast is in the Protestant period. And, brothers and sisters, the two-horned beast is pointing to the time when the formation of the leopard-like beast ended or finished. Therefore, we can apply that statement. One event is contingent to the other. Remember that statement in 1TG. Let me read to you that statement. I would like to borrow that statement given by the Shepherd's Rod in 1TG number 18, brothers and sisters, where the Shepherd's Rod says, one event, or page 14, 1TG number 18, page 14. Thus, one event is contingent upon another, one following the other. Although this statement is applied unto the prophecy in the book of Zechariah, but it can also be applied to the subject, the beast study, because it is a consecutive order, brothers and sisters. Now, the only way that we could be able to comprehend the subject concerning the leopard-like beast, it is also very important that we could be able to understand the two-horned beast in Revelation 13, verse 11 to verse 18. Now, brothers and sisters, I would like to emphasize again that the focal point of the message of the third angel is concerning the sanctuary or the mediatorial work of Christ in the heavenly sanctuary, as stated in Story of Redemption, page 381, and also the beast revelation. And since we already proven many times that the third angel's message on its final phase is the judgment for the living, General Conference Special, page 39 and page 40. The third angel's message on its final phase is the judgment for the living. And We know, brothers and sisters, that pointing to the two-horned beast, it points out to the United States of America. But there must be a particular object in view. Or in other words, the very first president of the United States of America is George Washington. But from George Washington to the next president that followed after him and next president, among those presidents of the United States of America, there must be a particular object in view. That is the president by which Betty Hotep says in 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 8. I would like to read, brothers and sisters, and it says, as the fulfillment of this prophecy is yet future, we cannot now tell who will then be the head king of the north, meaning the president of this prophetic nation, modern Babylon, that is symbolized by the two-horned beast. So it points out to the fulfillment of modern Babylon that is symbolized by the two-horned beast. According to this reading in 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 8. Now, I would like to read 2SR. Let me read to you. Here in 2SR page 151, it says, there are many beasts spoken of in the Bible, but this two-horned beast is the only one that can be termed a man. It will be noticed that from the 11th verse on the 13th chapter of Revelation, the scripture speaks of the two-horned beast and closes with the words, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Therefore, the mystical number 666 belongs to the two-horned beast and none other. However, we may not conclude that no one before it could have such a number. And then it says, the idea that the papacy is called the beast is altogether wrong. The papacy is represented by symbols on two different beasts. First, on the nondescript beast of Daniel 7, by the little horn having eyes like the eyes of a man and a mouth speaking great things. Second, on the leopard-like of Revelation 13, by the head that was wounded to death. These beasts are universal, representing the entire world in their time, both civil and religious. Therefore, it could not be said of either beast, it is a man. The papacy being only a part of both beasts, horned head on one hand and simply a wounded head on the other, cannot be called the beast. The two-horned beast is the only one representing a local religio-political government. Therefore, of him alone can it be said it is a man. Thus, whosoever shall stand at the head of that persecuting power, as described in this chapter and represented by the beast, is the one who shall bear the mystical number 666. The spirit of prophecy also states that the king of the north brought to view in Daniel 11 verse 45 and the two-horned beast of Revelation 13 is the same power, and that it shall bear this mystical number 666. We quote this power is the last that traced down the true church of God. And as the true church is still trodden down and cast out by all Christendom, it follows that the last oppressive power has not come to his end, and Michael has not stood up. This last power that traced down the saints is brought to view in Revelation 13, 11 to 18. His number is 666. To us our page 151 and 155. Now, let us ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. I do fully believe that the statement that such beast is called a man cannot be and can never be applied to all the president of the United States of America. There must be a particular object in view, the predicted president. And that is the reason why B.T. Hotep says that since this prophecy is still future, in 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 8, it says, we cannot now tell you who will be then the head, who will be the president of that prophetic nation, modern Babylon, which is symbolized by the two-horned beast. Now, in this reading, in 2SR 151, it is attached Daniel 11 verse 45. Both B.T. Hotep and Sister White, because B.T. Hotep is only quoting words to the lethal flock on page 8 and page 19, brothers and sisters. In this reading, that the power brought to view to that man represented by the man as the President of the United States of America and the King of the North brought to view in Daniel 11 verse 45 is the same power according to this reading in TSR page 151. Now, think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. The shepherd's rod called it the two-horned beast is the only one representing a local religio political government. That statement, religio political government, that is church and state, brothers and sisters. That is represented by church and state. Now, I would like to read first the great controversy, 443. It says, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast. Here is clearly presented a form of government in which the legislative power rests with the people, a most striking evidence that the United States is the nation denoted in the prophecy. But what is the image to the beast and how is it to be formed? The image is made by the two-horned beast and is an image to the beast. It is also called an image of the beast. Then to learn what the image is like and how is it to be formed, we must study the characteristics of the beast itself, the papacy. The great controversy, 443. The great controversy did not say that the beast is the papacy. No, that is not the statement. The statement is saying only that the characteristics of this beast is the characteristics of the papacy. I would like to read the statement in the old symbolic code, one symbolic code, number 4, page 8. It says, how do you harmonize the statement in the great controversy, page 445, the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13, the papacy, with the shepherd's rod, where it states that the leopard-like beast as a whole is not the papacy? The author of the great controversy could not possibly have in mind to imply that the beast as a whole is the papacy, but only that part of the beast to which she makes direct reference, namely the enforcement of its worship by the two-horned beast. Now, it could not be pointing to the Dark Ages, brothers and sisters, because the one who enforced that image during the Dark Ages is not the two-horned beast. And secondly, there was no an image during the Dark Ages, but only the beast. The statement saying the enforcement of its worship by the two-horned beast, as stated in the words, the image to the beast, represent that form of apostate Protestantism, not the papacy of today revived. But why is it that B.T. Hotep says, not the papacy of today revived? What does it mean by revive? Not the papacy by which the wounded head is healed. That is very plain. Not the papacy of today revive. The word today is in the days of B.T. Hotep. There is a papacy in the days of B.T. Hotep that had been healed. Papacy meaning system. So, we need to go back again. The statement in answerer number 3, pages 44 and page 45. But to minimize time, let us read page 45. Now, let us read. Accordingly, the medieval union of secular and ecclesiastical powers in the Roman Church gives the key to the interpretation of both the horn and the head, proving that the head, which was wounded unto death, is figurative of the ecclesiastical part only. For on the leopard-like beast, Rome is not represented by either a wounded horn or a horned head, but by a wounded head only, which shows that the blow affected not the secular half, the state, which is represented by horn, but only the ecclesiastical half, the church, represented by the head. So the message proclaimed by Martin Luther deliver a deadly blow only half of the ecclesiastical head. Since the shepherd's rod says in 1SR on page 200, 1SR page 200, the statement declared clearly in page 209, it says, we need not assume that the world would have to enroll in the membership of that body of people in order to fulfill the prophecy. Note, the world wandered not after the wounded head, but after the beast. And then it says, the scripture deals in the sense of spiritual matters. Or in other words, since it is dealing spiritual matters, it points out to the two fundamental doctrines of the papacy during the Dark Ages, by which in the two fundamental doctrines, only one of them that had been wounded by Martin Luther, but the other half, it was not wounded by Martin Luther. And what is the two fundamental doctrines of the papacy during the Dark Ages? Immortality of the soul and the Sunday observance. Now let me read to you here in The Great Controversy, page 548. Let's read. The Great Controversy, page 548 and 549. This is the statement. Let us read, brothers and sisters. The theory of the immortality of the soul was one of those false doctrines that Rome, borrowing from paganism, incorporated into the religion of Christendom. Martin Luther clashed it with the monstrous fables that form part of the Roman dunghill of decretals. Commenting on the words of Solomon in Ecclesiastes that the dead know not anything, the reformer says another place proving that the dead have no feeling. There is, saith he, no duty, no science, no knowledge, no wisdom there. Solomon judgeth that the dead are asleep and feel nothing at all, for the dead lie there, accounting neither days nor years, but when they are awake, they shall seem to have sleep scarce 1 minute. So in this reading, we can immediately discern that the only doctrines that had been attacked by Martin Luther is the doctrines concerning the immortality of the soul, one of the fundamental doctrines of the Roman Catholic Church. But the other fundamental doctrines which pertaining to the Sunday observance, Martin Luther had not been able to wound that doctrine because he himself is a Sunday keeper. He has no knowledge concerning the Sabbath of the fourth commandment. Not only he, but also the reformers that followed him. Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, as well as the First-day Adventists. So the shepherd's rod is plainly telling us, brothers and sisters, that the system by which the predicted event, brothers and sisters, by which the two-horned beast will enforce, no, it is not the papacy of today that had been revived. This reading in 1 Symbolic Code number 4 page 8 can be easily understood that the one that had been healed in February 11, 1929 is the papacy during the Dark Ages of religion, which was wounded by Martin Luther, and it had revived in February 11, 1929. That is the papacy mentioned by B.T. Hotep in 1 Symbolic Code, number 4, page 8, saying, not the papacy of today revived. Now, let us read 2SR so that we could understand, brothers and sisters, what part of the leopard-like beast that the two-horned beast will enforce to worship. For sure, it is not the papacy during the Dark Ages. Although it had been revived, brothers and sisters, in 1929, February 11, but B.T. Hotep says, no, it is not the papacy of today revived. And that is why Sister White, as quoted by B.T. Hotep, it says, the mark of the beast remains to be defined. Right? The Great Controversy. Let us read the Great Controversy, page 445. It says here. Let us read. Beginning from 444, it says, the beast with two horns causeth, commands all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Revelation 13, verse 16 and 17. This is what the shepherd was saying in 2SR 151, brothers and sisters. And also in 2 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8, that there must be perfect fulfillment of this prophetic verse pointing to that president of the United States of America. Because there are many presidents of the United States of America, this prediction never been carried out in their lifetime. So let us distinctly separate the historical event and the main prophetic event of Revelation 13, verse 11 to verse 18, brothers and sisters. And we would like to prove to you that in reality, Daniel 11 verse 45 itself. The verse itself, 45, is pointing that when the 45th President of the United States of America came on the stage of action, soon, very soon, this prophecy will be materialized. Brothers and sisters, think it thoroughly. Now, I would like to read the Great Controversy 4:4-5. It says, the third angel's warning is, if any man worship the beast and his image, God will not send an angel to warn to avoid worship the beast if the beast itself does not exist. Brothers and sisters, or in other words, the perfect fulfillment of the message of the third angel must be at the time when this President of the United States of America, the predicted President, will come on the stage of action. And that is the time that God unfold the prophecy so that all could be able to escape, to avoid it. And it is only the message of the third angel by which no one could explain it except antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. He will be the one to explain. Brothers and sisters, I would like to read General Conference Special, page 39 and page 40, to remind us it is illogical that God would send an angel not to worship the beast if there is nothing to worship, if the beast itself did not exist. That statement can be easily understood, brothers and sisters, that there was a period of time by which the beast did not exist. The beast mentioned there is the President. That is why B.T. Hotep says in 2 Symbolic Code 1.8, since this prophecy is still future, we cannot now tell you who will be the head, who will be the President, the King of the North, the President of the United States of America, the modern Babylon, symbolized by the two-horned beast, in 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 8. Now, I would like to read General Conference Special, page 39 and page 40. So we see that the more we consider the subject, the more obvious becomes the truth that the third angel's message in its final phase is the judgment for the living, the harvest. Plainly then, the work of Elijah is to give light on the judgment for the living. That is the work of Elijah, to give light concerning the judgment for the living. Now here, brothers and sisters, I would like to read again a statement in the Great Controversy, page 445. It says here, the third angel's warning is, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. Of course, if the third angel is saying, if any man worship the beast and his image, the third angel is trying to direct the people to the message of the first angel. Worship him that made the heaven and the earth, the everlasting gospel. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. Worship him that made the heaven and the earth. Brothers and sisters, think it thoroughly. The testimony given by the prophet in Testimonies, volume 1, 355. It says, I was pointed to Isaiah 58, Isaiah 59, Jeremiah 14, verse 10 to 12, is pointing to the United States of America. Volume 1, 355. Think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read Testimonies for the Church, Volume 1, 355. Let me read to you the statement given by the testimony of the prophet. And it's up to you whether you believe it or not. This is a true testimony because this testimony cometh from God, cometh from Jesus Christ, the true witness. Volume 1, 355 and 356, it says, I was pointed to Isaiah 58, Isaiah 59, verse 1 to 15, Jeremiah 14, verse 10 to 12, as a description of the present state of our nation. The people of this nation have forsaken and forgotten God. They have chosen other gods and followed their own corrupt ways until God himself turned from them. The inhabitants of the earth trampled upon the law of God and broken his everlasting covenant. So that is very plain in that reading, brothers and sisters. And it points out to the United States of America, brothers and sisters. Now, let us read again. The Great Controversy 445. The third angel's warning is, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. The beast mentioned in this message, whose worship is enforced by the two-horned beast, is the first or leopard-like beast of Revelation 13, the papacy. The image to the beast represents that form of apostate Protestantism which will be developed when Protestant churches shall seek the aid of the civil power for the enforcement of their dogmas. The mark of the beast still remains to be defined. You see, the great controversy says the beast mentioned in this message. What message? The message of the third angel. The beast mentioned in this message, whose worship is enforced by the two-horned beast. Who will enforce? The two-horned beast is the first or leopard-like beast of Revelation 13, the papacy. But the shepherd's rod made it so plain that papacy is not the papacy of today revived. One symbolic code, number 4, page 8. Now let us read again. 2SR page 114. It says here, the nondescript beast has only one horned head, a symbol of a monosectarian system. What is the system employed during the Dark Ages? The answer is found in 2SR 114. Monosectarian system. What does it mean? It can be easily understood that they enforce Catholicism, that everyone need to abandon their denomination or the sect and they need to adopt Catholicism. Monosectarian system. But what happened? The devil is studying, brothers and sisters. And since the record in that system, the woman not been able to sit on the 7 heads, not even been able to sit on the nondescript beast, but rather only many waters. Here in 2SR 123, it says, thus the symbol of the woman sitting on the waters represents the period before the Reformation. This was true during the period of papal supremacy, for at that time the papacy ruled the Roman world, peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Thus the woman sat on the waters during the 1,260 prophetic years of Daniel 7, verse 25. But she is yet to sit on the heads and on the beasts. Had she sat on the nondescript beast instead of on the waters, it would have been wrongly symbolized, for the woman by the tool of Catholicism did not reign over all the world, meaning beasts, but over many peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, many waters. Or in other words, brothers and sisters, through that system, monosectarian system, it is not very successful on the part of Satan. He saw it that her client, the woman in Revelation 17, she had not been able to reign all over the world. Now, we already read, brothers and sisters, that only half of the monosectarian that had been wounded by Martin Luther. What is that? The immortality of the soul. And the other half, for sure, brothers and sisters, since the shepherd's rod made it so plain, I would like to read track number 12 again on page 21 and page 22. Let us read. The beast 40 and 2-month period falls in the time of the ecclesiastical Rome, the empire after pagan Rome, whereas its wounded state, Revelation 13 verse 3, symbolized her during the Protestant period. To repeat again, the word whereas always indicates opposite meaning to the previous statement. So the previous statement is pointing to the time when the leopard-like beast blasphemed God through his mouth. And that is during the Dark Ages, 538 to 1798. And then the shepherd says, whereas its wounded state symbolized her during the Protestant period. Now, I would like to explain, brothers and sisters, that the wounded state of the leopard-like beast during the Protestant period is the other half, which was not wounded by Martin Luther. We already established, brothers and sisters, that Catholicism is built upon the foundation of two main fundamental doctrines, immortality of the soul and the Sunday observance. But the only thing that had been wounded by Martin Luther, according to the great controversy 548 and 549, it is only the immortality of the soul, but not the Sunday observance, For how could he be able to warn the beast concerning the Sunday observance while he himself is a Sunday keeper? He has no knowledge concerning the Sabbath or the fourth commandment, as well as all others, Protestant, Lutherans, Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, these four great denominations has no knowledge concerning the Sabbath of the fourth commandment. And for sure, brothers and sisters, the other half of the fundamental doctrines, the papacy, brothers and sisters, is pointing to 1888. When the Sunday observance, brothers and sisters, there is a bill that has been passed into the 50th Congress. Now let us read the National Sunday Law, brothers and sisters. National Sunday Law. This pamphlet is a report of an argument made upon the National Sunday Bill introduced by Senator Blair in the 50th Congress. It is not, however, exactly the argument that was made before the Senate committee, as there were so many interruptions in the course of my speech that it was impossible to make a connected argument upon a single point. By these questions, etc., my argument was not only forced to take a wider range than was intended when I began to speak, but I was prevented from making the definite argument that I designed to present. I do not speak of these interruptions and counter-arguments by way of complaint, but only to explain why this pamphlet is issued. Nevertheless, it is a fact that while there were 18 speeches before mine, occupying 3 hours, in all of which together there were only 189 questions and counter-arguments by all the members of the committee who were present, I was interrupted by the chairman alone 169 times in 90 minutes, as may be seen by the official report of the hearing. 50th Congress, 2nd Section, Messages and Documents, numbers 43, pages 73 to page 102. A national Sunday law is a question of national interest. While it is true that the Sunday rest bill did not become a law, the legislation having died with the expiration of the 50th Congress. Died, the description given by the voice of inspiration, that bill that had been introduced in 1888, it was died in the 50th Congress. And for sure, brothers and sisters, that is what Revelation 13, let us read. Revelation 13, verse 15. And he had power to give life. To give life indicates that it was dead. Let us distinctly separate, brothers and sisters, the statement wounded to death and the statement to give life. If such thing did not die, of course it is illogical that you will say to give life. But rather, the wounded head is healed or was healed, meaning it did not die. But such wound, almost to death, but it did not die. But according to the statement, it was died in the 50th Congress in 1888. And there was a prediction to give life. So this verse in verse 15 in Revelation 13 must be fulfilled after 1888, because that is the time by which the Sunday rest bill died. But it will give life again. Brothers and sisters, remember the statement in verse 12, Revelation 13, verse 12. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Let us distinctly separate verse 12 and verse 15. Because verse 15 is pointing to the time when that bill that died, he will give life again. But verse 12 is pointing to the deadly one, brothers and sisters, or to the wounded head, which is wounded almost to death, but it did not die, it will be healed again. But Bidihotep is plainly telling us, brethren, it is not the papacy today revived. On February 11, 1929, yes, the papacy had been revived. That's what it means by Bidihotep, saying it is not the papacy today revived, meaning, no, it is not the papacy that had been wounded by Martin Luther and then revived in 1929. No, it is not. Let us read again in 1 Symbolic Code number 4, page 8, and ponder deeply this reading. We need deep concentration, brothers and sisters. Let us read again the statement. How do you harmonize the statement in the Great Controversy, page 445, the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13, the papacy, with the shepherd's rod where it states that the leopard-like beast as a whole is not the papacy? The author of the Great Controversy could not possibly have in mind to imply that the beast as a whole is the papacy, but only that part of the beast to which she makes direct reference, namely the enforcement of its worship by the two-horned beast. As stated in the words, the image to the beast represent that form of apostate Protestantism, not the papacy of today revived. So BT Hotep is pointing to the papacy that had revived in February 11, 1929. What is the papacy that had been revived in February 11, 1929? The monosectarian. It is the monosectarian system. But, brothers and sisters, Satan already discovered that such system is not very successful. We already read, right? 2SR 123. Even before Satan employed such system during the Dark Ages, it was already written in the book of Revelation, Revelation 17:15. But Satan had not been able to discern that Revelation 17:15 is a prediction what he will do during the Dark Ages. It was predicted beforehand that he will employ a monosectarian system, but he could not be able to reign the whole world. Only many peoples, many waters. But the Bible made it so plain in Daniel 2 verse 39 concerning the exceeding great horn. There are only three divisions of the exceeding great horn: pagan, papal, and Protestant period. And in Daniel 2 verse 39, it is during the brass kingdom. Let us read again, brothers and sisters, and then go back to that statement in the old symbolic code. Let us read 2SR page 139. It says, the horn bears rule over all the earth. Who bears rule over all the earth? The horn. What horn? The exceeding great horn. Now, let's read 2SR 139. In order to fully comprehend what is being taught in this chapter, we again call attention to the chart on page 128. Now, let us follow the chart along with the reading. In the foregoing study, it is proven that the exceeding great horn of the goat does not represent imperial Rome only, but also papal Rome and the present world as well. For the horn first persecuted Christ and his followers under the jurisdiction of the Roman monarchy. The truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary were trodden down by reason of transgression in the period of the broken state of Rome up to 508 AD. For the imperial government came to an end in the year 476 AD. Furthermore, the papal power traced God's truth on the ground up to the termination of the prophetic 1260 years and ended with the imprisonment of the Pope in 1798. But the sanctuary and the daily were held to the ground by the great horn up to 1844. At that time, he lost control of them, and the power of the three angels' messages raised the truth from the ground or from underfoot and placed it in the church. Therefore, the great horn is a symbol of the entire New Testament period to the second coming of Christ, corresponding with the legs of iron and the feet and toes of the great image of Daniel chapter 2. Now notice, brothers and sisters, it says, the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary were trodden down by reason of transgression in the period of the broken state of Rome. When does the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary were trodden down? In the broken state of Rome. Let us distinctly separate the broken state of Rome on its first stage, pagan Rome, and the broken state of Rome, second stage, papal Rome, and the broken state of Rome in the period, Protestant period. And that is very plain. Now, what is the broken state of Rome on its first stage, pagan Rome? The message in 1888 called it triumvirate. It is called broken state because the power of Rome at that time does not only one power. It is consul, senate, and emperor. But in 27 BC, that is no longer the period of broken state because at that time, there is only one power that reigned pagan Rome, and that is the emperor. So the voice of inspiration is plainly telling, on the first stage of pagan Rome, prior to 27 BC, brothers and sisters, immediately after Malachi died in 393 BC, in that period of time, brothers and sisters, even in the period of the broken state of Rome, the daily and the sanctuary in reality had been trodden underfoot. And also in the second stage, the broken state of papal Rome, that is from 476 AD, brothers and sisters, to 538 AD. That is the broken state of papal Rome. The truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary were trodden underfoot. Let us distinctly separate the period of time by which the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary were taken out. No longer trodden underfoot, but taken out. And 538 AD is no longer the broken state of Rome. And secondly, the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary is no longer trodden underfoot, but rather it was taken out in 508 AD and implemented in 538 AD. What does it mean by trodden underfoot? Although it is still there, but it is out of value. The same with the words of Jesus Christ in Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. Brothers and sisters, lost its value. It says here in Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? Hence, thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden underfoot of men. So, the figurative speech trodden underfoot meaning good for nothing. It seems out of value. But what I'm trying to emphasize, in the Protestant period, it is also in the broken state of Rome by which the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary will be trodden underfoot. What is the broken state of Rome? I would like to read to you 2SR page 118. Let us read this statement. It says, as it has reference to the entire world's history under sin, we must consider the number of universal empires or periods since the world began. There is one before the flood, as previously explained. The second is Babylon. The third Medo-Persia. The fourth Grecia. The fifth is the Roman monarchy. These five are fallen. The one that is the present civilization since the fall of Rome under the symbol of the leopard-like and the scarlet-colored beast to the commencement of the millennium, which period is termed Rome in her broken state. You see, brothers and sisters, what is the focal point of the revelation of the leopard-like beast and the scarlet-colored beast? That revelation cometh from God, and God is telling His people that through that symbolization, you can easily discern. Your mind will be enlightened how the devil been able, brothers and sisters, to trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary, and God revealed it through these two symbols, leopard-like beast and the scarlet-colored beast. These two beasts is found in the Protestant period, and through the symbolization of these two beasts, the leopard-like and the scarlet-colored, the daily and the sanctuary were trodden underfoot. Brothers and sisters, let us distinctly separate the period by which human being is worshiping the beast and its image by foreheads, meaning voluntarily chosen. And let us distinctly separate, brothers and sisters, worshiping the beast and its image by hands. Because worshiping the beast and its image by hands, that is the time by which the bill became a law. But worshiping the beast and its image, that is the time when the bill is still in process to become a law. And the Sunday movement is canceling the true issue. They are making its way in the darkness. According to volume 5, page 452, the Sunday movement is canceling the true issue. They are making its way in the dark, in the darkness, because the devil is very careful. These last two cards of the devil, leopard-like and scarlet-colored, you can see how Satan is very, very careful to employ such deception that if possible, it cannot be detected. That's why I remember in 1SR, let me read to you. This reading in 1SR page 151. Flood is the same as water, which means people in the church unconverted, whom Satan is using to cause the church to be carried away in a very quiet manner, so that no one would be suspicious of the great deception. Now, I would like to read again. 1SR 151. Flood is the same as water, which means people in the church unconverted, whom Satan is using to cause the church to be carried away in a very quiet manner, so that no one would be suspicious of the great deception. That statement can be easily understood that this person that Satan is using, very influential person, brothers and sisters. And that's why the term used by the shepherd's rod, magnetic human leadership, because it seems that you will fall in love. You will be magnet to their influence, right? That's the statement used in answerer number 1, page 69 and page 70. magnetic human leadership. It says, brothers and sisters, so once they are led astray from the teachings of the prophets and captivated by new and magnetic human leadership, their liberation and correction became almost impossible. Answerer number 1, page 69 and page 70. Can you imagine such leadership? Magnetic, very influential, that no one would be suspicious of such great deception. But thank God, according to 2SR page 10, God lightens the earth with His glory through these symbolic revelations. Now let us go back again, brothers and sisters, concerning the exceeding great horn. The horn that bears rule over all the earth. It says here in 2SR page 139, why is it that the shepherd's rod is plainly telling, therefore the great horn is a symbol of the entire New Testament period? In the symbolization of the beast, what is the representation of the entire New Testament period? Nondescript, leopard-like, and scarlet-colored. So that is very plain, right, brothers and sisters? In 2SR page 85 and page 86, the nondescript, the leopard-like, and the scarlet-colored represents the entire New Testament period. Now here it says the exceeding great horn symbolized the entire New Testament period by which the shepherd's rod is plainly telling how the exceeding great horn trodden underfoot the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary when in the broken state of Rome. But in the last period, in the Protestant period, the broken state of Rome, according to 2SR 118, is represented by the leopard-like and the scarlet-colored. Or in other words, brothers and sisters, you could never be able to comprehend or detect how the devil been able to trodden underfoot concerning the daily and the sanctuary or Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary unless you have a complete understanding what is represented by the leopard-like beast and the scarlet-colored beast. The only medium employed by God so that we could be able to escape such great deception of Satan by which, according to Daniel in Daniel 8, verse 11 and 12, it practiced and prospered. Daniel called it policy. If you read Daniel chapter 8, let us read. Daniel declared clearly that through the policy, verse 25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his head, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. You see, by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And Peter says that description is the same with Daniel chapter 2. The stone, brothers and sisters, have been cut out without hand. Daniel 8 verse 25. And it says, through his policy, he had been able to prosper such craft, such deception. Now let us go back to 2SR 139. These are facts which cannot be denied. However, there is another proof that bears evidence of the same. So this is the proof that concrete the evidence concerning the exceeding great horn. That it is in the third period of the exceeding great horn by which the horn bears rule over all the earth. Brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read again. These are facts which cannot be denied. However, there is another proof that bears evidence of the same. Say the prophet, and after thee, that is pointing to the king of Babylon, shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. Daniel 2 verse 39. And then Betty Hotep explained. It says, the brass kingdom is accepted to represent Grecia, but the fact is that Grecia never did bear rule over all the earth. The most distant point of the compass reached by Alexander the Great was a portion of India. Neither did Imperial Rome bear rule over all the earth. What then? Is Daniel wrong in the interpretation of the dream? If there is any error, Daniel cannot be at fault. The responsibility would naturally fall on God's, who was the overseer of all the writings and the interpretation of the scriptures. If Daniel had made a mistake, it was God's duty to have him correct it. But as God is perfect in all his work, he cannot allow error in his holy word. Daniel is correct in his interpretation, and the brass kingdom must be ruled over all the earth, for all else may fail, but God's word shall stand forever.
If you will look into the historical event, brothers and sisters, we know that the first stage of the nondescript beast, pagan Rome, he became a universal empire, universal kingdom. But what does it mean by which pagan Rome did not be ruled all over the earth? Grecia did not be ruled all over the earth. Babylon, beginning from Babylon, Babylon did not rule all over the earth, according to Daniel 2:39. Medo-Persia did not be rule all over the earth. Grecia did not be rule all over the earth. Pagan Rome did not be rule all over the earth. Papal Rome did not be all over the earth. 2SR 123. 3 symbolic code number 7, page 4. But the Bible says it is the brass kingdom that be rule all over the earth. What does it mean? The Shepherd's Rod says, track number 2 on page 13, it says, gold being first of value in the order of metals is singularly adopted in symbolizing the first empire after the flood. Silver being second to gold is the number 2 metal and exactly symbolizes the second empire by Medo-Persia, while brass being third to gold precisely fits the third empire Grecia and consequently has the numerical value of 3. So brass, numerical value of 3. What does it mean? Because the title in 2SR 139, it says, the horn bills rule all over the earth. But what part of the horn represented by brass? What is brass? Third numerical value of 3. Therefore, the exceeding great horn had not been able to rule all over the earth in the first period, in the second period, but it is in the third period, represented by brass, meaning the third period of the exceeding great horn. That is plain. What is the focal point? It was explained in that paragraph. The truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary, trodden underfoot. On the first stage, second stage, third stage. But it is on the third stage that you could use the fulfillment of that statement, rule all over the earth. Let me ask you a question. Daniel 2 verse 39. Brothers and sisters, is it symbolical or literal? Let us read Daniel 2 verse 39. Daniel 2 verse 39. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall be rule over all the earth. Is it literal or symbolical? For sure that is symbolical prophecy, because there is no kingdom represented by literal brass. If that is symbolical, then the earth mentioned there could not be literal. That must be symbolical earth. Although the Shepherd's Rod already declared that the Bible cannot be mistaken, the horn did not be ruled all over the earth in the Babylonian period, in the Medo-Persian period, in the Grecian period, in pagan, and also in papal. Does the Bible wrong when it says that it is the brass? No, because it did not point out to Grecian Empire, but rather points out to the third period of the exceeding great horn, because brass has numerical value of number 3, meaning the third period of the exceeding great horn. That is the perfect fulfillment of Daniel 2:39, by which verse 39 is a symbolical prophecy. Therefore, the earth mentioned there could not be literal earth, but symbolical earth. Why is it that it was not fulfilled during the period of Babylonian Empire, Medo-Persian Empire, Grecian Empire, pagan Rome, papal Rome? Because at that time, the symbolical earth, there was no inhabitants. Unoccupied. That is the statement in Great Controversy 440. The focal point, brothers and sisters, is Revelation 13 verse 3. I would like to read again. Revelation 13 verse 3. Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, page 104. The time of finishing the mystery of God. What is the mystery of God? Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. That is the mystery of God. What is the mystery of God? The plan of salvation is the mystery of God. And accordingly, in 2SR 187, through sanctuary construction and service is the plan of salvation revealed. Why is it that it is called a mystery of God? The mystery of God. Let us read again the statement in Lessons on Faith. I would like to read again. 101 and 102. It is true. I think I need to read the Bible first in Timothy. 1 Timothy 3:16. And without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. 1 Timothy 3 verse 16. What kind of flesh? When Jesus Christ manifested in this world, what kind of flesh that Jesus Christ manifested? Sinful flesh, sinful nature. Now let's read again the statement here in Lessons on Faith, page 101 and 102. It is true that there is a mystery about how this can be. It is a mystery how God can make manifest the knowledge of Himself by such person as you and I are in any place, much less in every place. Yet mystery though it be, it is the very truth. But do we not believe the mystery of God? Assuredly, we do believe it. Then never forget that the mystery of God is God manifest in the flesh, and you and I are flesh. Then the mystery of God is God manifest in you and me who believe it. Do not forget either that the mystery of God is not God manifest in sinless flesh, but God manifests in sinful flesh. There could never be any mystery about God's manifesting Himself in sinless flesh, in one who had no connection whatever with sin. That would be plain enough. But that He can manifest Himself in flesh laden with sin and with all the tendencies to sin, such as ours is, that is a mystery. And in the last paragraph, I would like to read, and this is the mystery of God today and forever. God manifests in the flesh, in human flesh, in flesh laden with sin, tempted and tried. In this flesh, God will make manifest the knowledge of Himself in every place where the believer is found. Believe it and praise His holy name. This is the mystery which today in the third angel's message is again to be made known to all nations by the obedience of the faith. This is the mystery of God, which is in this time is to be finished. Not only finished in the sense of being ended to the world, but finished in the sense of being brought to completion in its groundwork in the believer. This is the time when the mystery of God is to be finished in the sense that God is to be manifest in the flesh, in every true believer, in every place where that believer shall be found. This is indeed and in truth the keeping of the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. You see, that is the mystery, that the knowledge of the plan of salvation will be implanted to you and I. That even though the proceedings is in the heavenly sanctuary, what a privilege by which by faith we have given the high privilege to see what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary. It says here in 4 BC 11:39, the vision given to Isaiah, 4 BC 11:39, the vision given to Isaiah represents the condition of God's people in the last days. They are privileged to see by faith the work that is going forward in the heavenly sanctuary. 4 BC 11:39. Brothers and sisters, would you think it is not a high privilege by which we'll be given the chance to know what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary? And this is the reason why the Shepherd's Rod says in 1 TG 51, pages 5 and 6, it says, if the church is not commensurably growing and expanding, then how can she be a living church, and how can she keep up with the signs of the times and with the progress in the sanctuary above? 1 TG number 51, pages 5 and 6. We need to know the progress in the sanctuary above, brothers and sisters. And I remember in Testimonies for the Church, volume 6, it says, very important, as we are now in the living in a time by which the final crisis is already come. It says here in volume 6, 404, preparation for the final crisis. Brethren, to whom the truth of God's word had been opened, what part will you act? It says, what part will you act in the closing scenes of this world history? Let us read again. Volume 6, 404. Brethren, to whom, it says, to whom the truth of God's word had been opened, what part will you act in the closing scenes of this world history? Are you awake to these solemn realities? Do you realize the grand work of preparation that is going on in heaven and on earth? That is a very important question, brothers and sisters. And that is why here in Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, on page 104, it says, the time of finishing the mystery of God. But that imposture is not to last forever. Thank the Lord. This great truth of the priesthood, ministry, and sanctuary of Christianity is not to be hid forever from the eyes of the church and the world. The mystery of iniquity arose and so hid from the world the mystery of God, that all the world followed its wandering. Revelation 13 verse 3 and 4. But the day comes when the mystery of iniquity shall be exposed, and the mystery of God in its own truth and purity shall shine forth once more, never more to be hid, but to accomplish its great purpose and be completely finished. For it is written that in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as yet declared to his servants the prophets. Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, page 104. Again, brothers and sisters, in that reading, we can easily discern that the statement in 2SR 221 saying, the book of Revelation is not the prophecy itself, but a revealing of the prophecy. That revelation in Revelation 13 verse 3 and 4. Concerning the leopard-like beast, remember, we already read in 2SR 139. The focal point on that statement, brothers and sisters, the horned bears rule all over the earth. The exceeding great horn, pointing how he successfully trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary. What does it mean? That Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary became obscured, meaning it is no longer the theme of God's people. They were no longer meditating. They were no longer focusing their attention to the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary. They were busy for many things, discussing those things by which the devil has no concern at all. The statement in 2 TG 30, page 15, the devil is more shrewd than we can imagine. He is not particular. Whatever we believe, so long as he can keep us ignorant to what is occurring in the heavenly sanctuary. That's what it means in White House Recruiter, page 31 and 32. Satan is determined to keep God's people in ignorance of timely truth. And what more damaging darkness he could seek them in than in ignorance of the things that God wants them to know, that their cases is pending in the heavenly sanctuary. It is being weighed, and they have no knowledge at all. None, absolutely none. So here in track number 4, page 26, it says, note that the truth and the place, not the sanctuary itself, were cast down, that is, both Christ's truth and his place in the earthly sanctuary were set aside, so that the knowledge as to his mediatorial work became obscured. You see, brothers and sisters, very important prophecy, the plan of salvation, the plan of redemption, revealed through sanctuary construction and service. It says, in reality, it were set aside and became obscured. To repeat again, brothers and sisters, the Bible cannot be mistaken. The focal point, brothers and sisters, is concerning Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. Why is it that it cannot be applied during pagan Rome? To repeat again, because the Bible says all the world, meaning without any exemption, it cannot be applied during pagan Rome, because although majority of the Jewish people, brothers and sisters, the devil successfully to hide from their eyes, from their understanding, that those ceremonies, those sacrifices is pointing to Jesus Christ, to the death of Jesus Christ, and the sanctuary on earth is only a pattern. The true sanctuary is in the heavenly sanctuary. Although many of them had been misled by the devil, but there is still a group of people in that place. First of all, pointing to John the Baptist and the associates of John the Baptist, and later on the apostles, brothers and sisters, because there are only 2 worlds recorded in the Bible as far as the beast, brothers and sisters, is thus concerned. That is the sea and the earth. And the sea in the days of pagan Rome is Palestine. According to track number 5, brothers and sisters, here in track number 5, it says, the sea represents Palestine. Let's read the statement here. On page 45, this is borne out by the prophet words, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise from the end of the earth, ye that go down to the sea, where the world originated, Palestine. So the sea in the period of pagan Rome is Palestine. The sea in the period of papal Rome is the continent of Europe. But how about the earth? In the first period of pagan Rome, brothers and sisters, although majority in the sea, Palestine, he had been able to darken their understanding, but you cannot use the word all, because the church of God, which is the apostolic church, were still there. During the period of the papacy, by which the sea is represented by the continent of Europe. This is the testimony given by the shepherd's rod in 2SR 142. It says, so while the truth was cast down by the church leadership in that period and the abomination set up, God had some in obscurity who keep his Sabbath and had knowledge of the sanctuary truth through the entire 1,260 years of wilderness journey. 2SR 142. You cannot use the word all. The world wandered after the beast, which is apostasy. What is apostasy? Brothers and sisters, complete apostasy. And you cannot apply that because according to B.T. Hotep, there are still God's people unknown to any human being, the church in the wilderness. But Daniel 2 verse 39 is very plain. The brass shall be ruled all over the earth. What is the earth? Symbolical earth. Brothers and sisters, you cannot deny the Bible. And it is pointing to the great apostasy. We already explained Isaiah 59:16. There was no man, pointing to the United States of America. Zechariah 6 verse 8. 2TG 22:22, it says, God's Spirit have been quieted in the North Country. What is the North Country? In the primary application, Babylon, the Babylon which is the antitypical antediluvian world, but there are two Babylons. The Babylon after the flood, 2SR 245. That is the Babylon in the post-diluvian world, and that is pointing to the United States of America. To symbolic code number 1, page 8. To repeat again, brothers and sisters, why is it that in early writings 249, the prophet is saying that unless you will understand the first angel's message and the second angel's message, you will never be benefited by the message of the midnight cry. The glory and the power attend with that proclamation, behold, the bridegroom cometh. Why? Because according to the voice of inspiration, that message will not originate in the United States of America because God Himself declared clearly, I will no longer send any truth. Do not expect any truth, brothers and sisters, that will originate in the two-horned beast domain. And this statement in 11 symbolic code number 12, page 13, an announcement is made that the bridegroom cometh. All the virgins are wakened by it. If the announcement were to come from the Geo conference, you know, that all the members would fill their vessels with oil and all would have it. The facts are, though that the cry does not come from there, but it points out to the United States of America. The cry will not originate in the United States of America because God's Spirit have been quieted and the woman is in the wilderness. The true church of God is symbolized by a woman. 2SR 261. And that woman is clothed with the sun. When does the woman clothed with the sun? When she went out of Egypt. 2SR page 75. The church, the woman must be symbolized a church by which unto them was bestowed two divine laws, the moral law and the ceremonial law. What is the ceremonial law? The holy feast. Look at the mirror. Does the holy feast have been observed while they were still in Egypt? There is no such record, brothers and sisters. What is Egypt? First, Goshen represent United States of America. 2SR page 76. The voice of inspiration is very plain, brothers and sisters. Let my people go, that they may keep a feast unto me in the wilderness. Brethren, to repeat again, brothers and sisters, that statement in Revelation 13 verse 3, all the world wandered after the beast. The world mentioned there is the entire United States of America. If there is still some in the United States of America that did not wander after the beast, then the Bible is mistaken because the Bible says all the world. It cannot be applied in the days of Sister White, in the days of Alonzo Jones and B.T. Hotep. If it is applied in the days of B.T. Hotep, what world will you say that all the world wandered after the beast? Brothers and sisters, the Bible is very plain. Daniel 2:39. Where is the place by which the brass will rule all over? It is the earth. The brass kingdom shall be ruled all over the earth. That earth is symbolical earth. Because that is symbolical prophecy. The brass kingdom is a symbolical kingdom. Therefore, the earth mentioned there must be symbolical. The shepherd's rod says, for if every term is not symbolical, then how could we be able to differentiate? Here in tract number 5, page 41, for if every term is not symbolical, how shall we differentiate those which are from those which are not? And how shall we know by which to define the truth? Now, I would like to read again. For if every term is not symbolical, how shall we differentiate those which are from those which are not? And how shall we know by which to define the truth? And this is the verse that I would like to read, that we will continue on our next episode, brothers and sisters, still concerning the leopard-like beast. I would like to read to you Revelation chapter 8, verse 13. It says, "And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven." Would you think the message that flying in the midst of heaven, there is other except the three angels' messages or the third angel? There is no other message saying flying in the midst of heaven. Brothers and sisters, that is only pointing to Revelation 14, verse 6 to verse 12. "And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound." Now, if the trumpet study is a symbolical prophecy, then the earth mentioned here must be symbolical, not literal. And that is why B.T. Hotep says in track number 5, symbolical or literal? On page 26, it says, symbolical or literal? Which? Only when this question is rightly answered will we have the correct interpretation to unlock this great symbolical treasure house of truth. Revelation 8 verse 13, symbolical or literal? If that is literal, then there must be literal angels flying in the midst of heaven. For sure, that is a symbolical prophecy. Therefore, the earth there must be symbolical, because trumpet study is a symbolical prophecy, brothers and sisters. And also, Revelation chapter 12, hoping that you will focus to this reading. Revelation 12 verse 12, "Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." There are two localities mentioned here, brothers and sisters. That is the earth and the sea. For sure, the earth and the sea mentioned here could not be literal, but symbolical. Revelation 12, verse 12. We will continue this subject, brothers and sisters, on our next episode. And we'll be dealing what will happen in 2021 in the United States of America. To repeat again, we will be dealing the subject, what will happen in 2021 in the United States of America. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program, brothers and sisters. The most important thing in our broadcasting this message is only to prepare the people for the oncoming destruction, to escape such cunning deception of Satan, the wholesale deception, brothers and sisters. So hoping that God would bless us and would help us. Thank you very much. May the good Lord bless you and have a wonderful evening.